Apologies for absence from Councillor John Andrews, Councillor Beryl Ezard, Councillor Roland Tarr, Councillor Derek Beer, Councillor Kate Weller, Councillor Gary Suttle, Councillor Jill Haynes, Councillor Emma Parker, Councillor Claudia Webb and Councillor Cathy Lugg.
Thank you. Item 2. Are you happy to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of July, which I'm sure you've all read? Everybody happy? Yeah. Thank you very much. Item 3, declarations of interest. The first is a dispensation granted to all councillors, which Jonathan Mayer will talk about.
Good evening, councillors. Jonathan Mayer, Director of Legal and Democratic and Monitoring Officer. This is to confirm that all councillors have been granted a dispensation in relation to item 10 on your agenda, which is the notice of motion concerning winter fuel payments. So there is no need for councillors at this point, at any point, to make disclosures that might otherwise be intrusive about your own circumstances or those of any family member. So no need for individual disclosures on item 10, and no need for any of you to leave the meeting at that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other declarations of interest? No? Thank you. Item 4, the Chairman's announcements. And I've got the sad announcement to report the death of David Durley, who was a former member of East Dorset District Council. And Councillor Skeets would like to say a few words about him.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Andy Skeets from West Moors and Three-Legged Cross. It's with great sadness that I report the passing of former councillor Dave Durley from West Moors Parish in East Dorset area on the 14th of September, aged 93. David is remembered as a long-serving councillor of West Moors and Parish and East Dorset District Councils, and a long-suffering supporter of Southampton Football Club. We will remember David as a cheerful man with a great sense of humour, working in a kind, friendly way in whatever he undertook. David was a busy man, a great man, that would take the trouble to help people in our community, and he always found time. He helped me to deliver the Westmoor Skate Park Youth Challenge, supporting at very crucial times. Committed to principles which were very akin to the Nolan principles, he lived with them and worked with them always. David was chairman of East Dorset District Council from 1994 to 1995 and a 3-time chairman at West Moors Parish Council between the years of 1976 to 1997. As chairman of West Moors Parish Council in 1976, it was David who had to make the final decision on the evacuation of the village as forest fires approached the West Moors fuel dump. He made the right call. He was also involved in purchasing the Petwin as a village green, and an outside inspectorate had deemed it was okay to build a bistro on it, and the community clearly didn't want it. He was closely involved and supporter of several developments like Moors Valley Country Park, the Queen Elizabeth Centre, Wolford Mill, and the Priest House Museum. A former East Dorset staff who worked closely with David described him as a listener, supporter, and someone who was not afraid to take tough decisions and bold decisions. He was seen by East Dorset councillors and staff as a people person, above all loyal and always ready with a friendly word. DWP was formed, winning its own refuse service contract back under compulsory competitive tendering. David chaired that works board. He will be sadly missed in our community by all that knew him. Rest in peace, Dave Durley. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those words. Can we move on now to item 5, public participation? We've got 3 questions this evening. The first is submitted by Richard Thomas, who is attending online. Hopefully you're there, Richard.
Can you hear me, Chair? Hello?
If you'd like to read your question.
Good evening. My question is for Councillor Nick Ireland, Leader of the Council. It's a truism that in present-day Britain, it's not just the NHS that needs reform, or it will die. Government and local government, and even our system of democracy itself, is in the same parlous state. It was therefore heartening to see the attempt made recently by this council to engage better with the people of Dorset through the A Big Conversation roadshow process. But it was much less heartening when the actual process involved what I would define as the motherhood and apple pie approach, choices being put to the public that no one in their right mind could possibly disagree with, and hence produce a predetermined result. Also at fault was the almost complete focus on the coastal strip communities, as if nothing much mattered in Dorset north of Blandford, and the absence of any cabinet members at the drop-ins. We now learn that town and parish councils are to be consulted on the council's 5-year plan priorities from the 16th of October, with responses needed by the 8th of November. This is again too little too late. So while it's heartening to see the new administration start to improve on public engagement with the residents of Dorset over the council's plan for the next 5 years, it would be even more encouraging if the wider public could be told more precisely what is being proposed and when, and to what extent, and to what eventual end, so that they too can feel consulted and feel and feed into their local councils. So my question is, can the leader of the council please tell us what the precise purpose of the Big Conversation travelling show was, if it is not now, as it appears, to involve the wider voting and tax-paying community of Dorset, and when will they have their chance to comment on whatever it is Cabinet finally presents to Council on the 5th of December, and how? Given climate change and the degradation of nature is becoming ever more urgent, and the catastrophic collapse of many ecosystems already taking place, as we've heard again today, so that we no longer have the luxury of business as usual, will he now assure the people of Dorset that his leadership will ensure that the climate and the nature crisis is at the top of this council's agenda, and will he visit North Dorset shortly, including Shaftesbury, to say this to us in person, please? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. The response will be from Councillor Ryan Help.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas, for your question. My name is Ryan Hope. I'm the portfolio holder for Customer, Culture and Community Engagement, and was the lead portfolio holder on the Big Conversation. The purpose of the Big Conversation, public engagement, was to share our purpose as strategic priorities for Dorset Council to deliver over the next 5 years. To be clear, this was public engagement and not a statutory consultation. The engagement process took place from July the 24th to September the 15th, featuring 12 in-person events and additional activities in libraries and online, ensuring access for digitally excluded residents and to ensure that all communities had the chance to participate. Public response. The feedback was positive, with strong support for our strategic priorities of housing, climate, nature, economic growth, and communities for all. Impact on the council's plan. Residents' feedback will help shape the new council plan, with details to be shared publicly soon. There will also be additional engagement activities with town and parish councils, and each town and parish council will be given a draft of the new council corporate plan to comment further before it goes to cabinet and then again full council. The comment of coastal communities being the key here, I don't believe was correct, as we set off to have an inclusive process featuring many sessions and then the online session and libraries as already mentioned. And the council emphasises that issues discussed affect all Dorset residents, not just coastal communities, and acknowledges that climate crisis is a top priority.
Thank you. The second question is submitted by Rebecca Saville. Would you like to read your question?
Oil has been produced at Wyche Farm since 1979, originally by the government-owned British Gas Corporation before BP took over in 1984 and subsequently sold to Perenco in 2011. Perenco is a company that specialises in operating ageing facilities, operating as cheaply as possible to ensure such sites are still profitable. It is not subject to the same scrutiny and oversight as larger fossil fuel companies because, as a family-owned business, it's not subject to the reporting requirements of a public company. In 2010, there was an oil leak and the plant was closed down for several months. On the 26th of March 2023, a major incident was declared when a large quantity of reservoir fluid was released into Poole Harbour. This was caused by a defective pipe at Ower Bay. This time, there was sustained national media coverage about pollution in the protected area, thanks in part to campaigning by local environmental groups. This area of Dorset is particularly reliant on income from tourism. A more serious pollution incident could have had a significant detrimental effect on the local economy. According to an impact assessment commissioned by Dorset Council, the March 2023 incident cost local businesses over £500,000. Perenco are planning to continue operating in Poole Harbour until their licence expires in 2037 and have provided assurances that safety improvements have been implemented. What legal powers, responsibilities and influence does Dorset Council have regarding Wyche Farm and associated works? And what measures are Dorset Council taking to safeguard local residents and businesses to ensure that there is not another, potentially more serious oil spill in Poole Harbour?
Thank you for the question. It's going to be replied by Councillor Shane Bartlett.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Ms Saville, for your question. There are a number of regulators who have different responsibilities and powers for regulating Wyche Farm, and these include the Council, the Environment Agency, and the Health and Safety Executive, and the North Sea Transition Authority, formerly the Oil and Gas Authority. As the Minerals Planning Authority, the Council has granted planning permission for Wyche Farm, which have conditions and obligations governing the operation and decommissioning of the oil field. The Council also undertakes monitoring visits to check compliance with these conditions and obligations. The conditions require any significant uncontrolled hydrocarbon or fluid release to be reported to the Council and for Perenco to take immediate steps to prevent further releases, minimise risk to the environment and clean up the pollution and take steps to prevent further polluting release. Legislation also requires the Council to develop and test off-site emergency response plans in respect of incidents relating to the gathering station site and the main pipeline that transports crude oil from the gathering station to Hampshire. These regulations, however, are about preventing and mitigating the effect of incidents on people and the environment rather than preventing the incidents themselves. The Poole Harbour oil spill incident in March 2023 fell outside of these regulations, but Dorset Council responded alongside other partner organisations as a Category 1 responder under the Civil Contingencies legislation, and costs incurred were successfully recovered from Perenco. As the operator Perenco is required to maintain a number of plans and policies, ensuring that it has taken all measures necessary to prevent major accidents from happening. These are subject to examination and compliance by external regulators. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you for that. Now a question 3 submitted by Maxine Fox.
Aye. Oh, sorry, can you not hear it? Shall I start again? Sorry. I'm not very good with technology. Don't leave it. Increasingly, you'll find out about that. Increasingly, mainstream media is reporting on the unsustainably high environmental footprint of technologies such as 5G and AI. The hypocrisy of the government who, while demanding carbon reduction, are also ruthlessly rolling out these energy and water-hungry technologies is becoming ever clearer. Today, every sector of society, state, business and residential, is busy generating trillions of pieces of data, all of which has to be stored electronically and in perpetuity. There will never be enough wind farms, solar parks and fresh water to meet this massively increasing need. The industry tells us their technology will solve any problems. These platitudes echo what the chemical industry told farmers and what the plastic industry told consumers. In truth, this harvesting and selling of data is just another global industry, backed by government, both obsessed with short-term profits and determined to ignore the increasing evidence of harm. Companies investing in AI have seen their carbon footprints increase by as much as 50%. A web search using AI uses 4 to 5 times the energy of a conventional search. Even more urgent is this technology's consumption of fresh water. By 2027, scientists predict that the equivalent of half the UK's total freshwater supply will be needed simply to cool data centres. Lithium for batteries requires 500,000 gallons of fresh water to produce 1 cubic tonne. Globally, the mining of rare metals is accelerating the process of desertification as well as soil and water pollution. 5G is 1,000 times more powerful than 4G. It drains batteries very quickly, meaning more energy to recharge, shorter lifespans, and more resources to replace. Figures from Australia show less than 2% of lithium batteries are recycled, left instead to leach toxins into soil and water and causing fires where stored. Data generation is an unsustainable madness and an environmental catastrophe. It is neither clean nor green. We must think about data creation the same way we think of carbon emissions and drastically reduce our use of wireless technologies and AI. Given this Council's pledge and duty to reduce carbon emissions, mitigate climate change and protect nature, will this Council be challenging the Government on the incompatibility of data-generating technologies and carbon reduction, and instead advocate for the implementation of alternative, energy-efficient, safe, future-proof technologies that protect life and our planet?
Thank you for the question. It's going to be Councillor Ireland is going to respond.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Nick Ireland. I'm responding to this as the portfolio holder for climate and environment. And thank you for your question. Balancing the benefits of technology with the undoubted environmental impacts is a global challenge. Technology, however, is a critical component of our world today. From communication and time management to manufacturing, shopping and healthcare, digital tools have an enormous impact on our lives. Adopting advanced technology will be key to modernising Dorset's economy, attracting high-value jobs and retaining skills within our economy. Let's for a moment look at the benefits of technology in just one small aspect of society, education. Through technology, educators can better meet the learning needs of students, making education more accessible, inclusive and engaging. According to a local university, the benefits include flexibility in the way we study, personalised learning, choice in how we learn, instant access to resources and expertise, collaborative learning opportunities and a global perspective. Dorset Council embraces and promotes the huge part technology and digital data plays in the running of essential services and providing economic and social opportunities to all. We're at the forefront of showing how tech can improve lives in environmentally responsible ways while driving the move away from dirty and inefficient processes of the past. Here are a few examples of that. Great digital connectivity is the foundation to digitising and modernising our public services. Our recent agri-tech trials showed how connected robots could weed wheat without polluting diesel tractors and harmful herbicides, for example. Small, connected devices are helping keep vulnerable people safe in their own homes and helping them feel less isolated. We are leading a national project to radically reduce power consumption by the telecoms sector. Data centres are not going to go away, but we do need to run them more sustainably by using green energy and cooling them in innovative ways, such as putting them, for example, in leisure centres to heat the swimming pool. The green economy has the potential to transform the economy of Dorset over the next 20 years. Just one example is proposed Celtic Sea offshore wind farms that will generate approximately 4.5 gigawatts of electricity by 2035 and rising to 16.5 gigawatts by 2045. That's something like 30% of the energy needs of the UK. And as a side effect, it will provide around about 26,000 well-paid jobs across the southwest. And just a final observation, when the COVID-19 pandemic struck, It was technology and digital data that allowed councils and other public services across the UK to continue running the essential public services that we all depended upon. And it was also technology that allowed people to maintain contact with their families and their loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you both for your questions. We now move on to item 6. There are no petitions or deputations. So item 7, before item 7, can I just say that if you'd like to speak, ask a question or join in a debate, could you please put your hand up clearly so the Vice Chair can make a note of who you are? And also, when you speak, if you can please stand up, introduce yourself and say your ward. It helps everybody here and at home if you can do that. Thank you very much. So and now item 7, the announcement from the leader.
Thank you, Chairman. Nick Ireland, Leader of the Council. I'm going to be really short. There's a couple of announcements, really. Councillor Ryan Hope, from this day forward, will be now responsible for the leisure services we provide instead of Councillor John Andrews. We felt it sat better under his portfolio. There will be a webinar on the council plan coming up soon. I think it's probably going to be a couple of weeks' time. Please attend. The budget cafe process is starting. Again, please attend. Those of us who've been councillors before know how valuable it was in the past. Bottom line is you get out of what you put into it, I think, it's fair to say. Devolution, I mentioned it last time. We've now since submitted an expression of interest. We did it because we need to be around the table rather than outside of the room. It's a bit like playing darts blindfolded. We haven't had any response at all from government so far. We submitted it on Monday the 30th of September, so over 2 weeks ago, nearly. I would just reiterate, especially for members of the public watching, it's definitely not a merger of councils, despite what the Dorset Echo has to say. And we've essentially gone as our first choice with what the previous administration had and what Councillor Flower was talking about last year, and that's essentially a partnership with Somerset, Wiltshire and BCP. I will be visiting town councils. An offer has been made, I hope it's been made, to all our town councils. I think there's 16 of them in Dorset Council's area. The plan is I'll be visiting them on a approximately 6-month rolling basis. Ideally, on the evening, they have their town council meeting. And the idea is to turn up in advance, speak with town councillors if they wish, and then attend the democratic open process, and I then reserve the right to leave after that. But that's going to be happening going forward. And finally, and I don't know whether I should say I'm happy to say this, but Elaine Tibbler is retiring. And those of us who know Elaine, she's been crucial to democratic services for a long time. She's been excellent. She hasn't actually retired officially yet. I think she's on holiday using up her leave. I think we'll all miss her. She's always very friendly. She's always been very competent, and she's pulled me up a few times. So I'd like the chamber to acknowledge the fact that she is retiring and join with me in expressing thanks for her service and all the best wishes for the future. Thank you.
Councillor Leary, you've got a question for the leader.
So, thank you, Chairman. When devolution was brought up by the previous administration, I was one of the few members to raise concerns and actually vote against it. Can you confirm that any decisions will come back to full council for a final decision, and that you will indeed keep us completely up to date as things progress?
I can assure Councillor Leary that any decision in the end will be taken by this council. We don't know any details. The whole process has been opaque. We've essentially submitted, after discussions with our colleagues across other councils and other authorities, what the best would be for Dorset, I think. But in terms of what powers we get and the money that is essential to come with them, we don't know, because the government have left us completely in the dark. There is a huge steer from government that we should go down a mayoral route. Our expression of interest said we didn't want that. The leaders of Somerset, Wiltshire and Millie and BCP, we don't agree with a mayoral model. We don't think we want another layer of bureaucracy above us. However, the steer from central government, and particularly the Secretary of State, Jim McMahon, is that essentially if you don't have a mayoral authority, you won't be around the table, and the table is the Council of Nations and Regions. We don't know is the answer. There will be a devolution bill, English devolution bill, I think, just for England, published later this year, and then we'll know the detail, and then we'll no doubt be in discussions again, and I can't see anything happening anytime soon. Middle of the next year, maybe.
Councillor Somper.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Jane Somper, Beacon Ward. Thank you for that. Just in regard to you attending town councils, I presume you will have time at some point to also attend the smaller parishes, and I would like to extend the invitation to one of my parishes who would be very happy for you to come, which is Melbury Abbas.
Councillor Kimber. Sorry.
I would like to thank Councillor Somper for the invitation to Melbury Abbas, and yeah, I won't rule it out, put it that way. But realistically, I don't know how many parish councils we've got. It's well over 200. How many? 160. I haven't got enough time in my life to go around 160 parish councils. I'm sorry, I'm sure they deserve my attention, but it's not practical. I'm sorry. But Melbury Abbas, take that as a yes, okay?
Okay, Councillor Kimber.
Thank you, Chair. Could I be assured on the devolution bill that's going through? One of the things that we do really, really well as a Dorset Council is consult with the public. Can I be assured that consultation will go right across Dorset in the normal manner that we usually do it? Thank you.
To be honest, I don't know the official answer to that. I can't see us having a referendum on devolution. I don't think that will be a requirement. But in the end, you know, all 82 of us are representatives of our public. It's for us to decide to listen to the people we represent and feed that back. You are the elected representative. You have the power, and you will have the vote finally on the devolution deal if there is one.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, it's really a question about the parish councils. Could we not...
Sorry, could you introduce yourself and your ward?
Oh, sorry, Barry Cooper, Winterbourne North, sorry. With the meeting with parish councils, could we not have meetings, say, in North, East, West and South of the Dorset Council with a group of parish councils? Not to visit each parish council, but if you could visit, say, 6 or 8 at a time, then, I think, otherwise they feel they've been left out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. I'd like to think all our parish councils are receiving visits from the members in the chamber, if you represent a parish council. I'm not against meeting a group of parish councils, but I think that's probably better served through going through something like DAPTC and for them to organise it. And in the end, do they really want to turn up for half an hour to talk to me? It's probably better if they have extra things to do as well. So maybe we can look at some sort of model, maybe through the DAPTC, that will make it worthwhile for their effort. Because, I'm not that exciting, to be honest.
Councillor Sowerhouse.
I think the leader of the council underestimates his appeal. Duncan's Sowerhouse, Corfe Mullen. Certainly as chair of a town council with surrounding parishes, if we knew when you were coming to visit, we would definitely extend and be happy to extend a welcome to our friends and neighbours in parishes such as Coal Hill, Pamp Hill, and it could be an interesting, exciting evening with Nick. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sowerhouse. That's an excellent model. Thank you for the suggestion. You will be told when I'm coming. It'll be at your convenience rather than mine, and I'll do my best to up my game. Thank you.
Councillor Lucy Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Knock Sherwood, Lacey Clark, Blandford Fortham Ward, as you requested. Councillor Ireland, I think actually I like the idea of the Cabinet or yourself coming to visit all the different areas in Dorset. Town councils, though, normally have at least one Dorset councillor member, if not more, so already do have quite a level of representation in this chamber. But parishes, quite often you have a number of parishes that share a Dorset councillor. So I actually think there's more merit in you making the effort to go to see every parish within Dorset. Well, no, because they don't have that sort of FaceTime with you, and actually that should be a really important thing. And I understand you can't see them many times in 1 year, but over the course of the term, why not make that an aspiration to visit every parish to attend one of their meetings? I think that could be really useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lacey Clark. I'll take your suggestion under advisement. Thank you.
Are there any more questions for the leader? No, thank you. We'll now move on to item 8, the questions from councillors. We have 9 questions, so hopefully we can do them quite quickly. Question 1 is from Hannah Hobbs-Chell.
Thank you. Councillor Hannah Hobbs-Chell, Ferndown South Ward. I am grateful to the new Cabinet for the commitment to Ferndown and to Ferndown Town Council to assist with the regeneration plan and resolving the ongoing Barrington lease situation. And I appreciate that you are currently working from the previous administration's budgetary constraints and directions until the next financial year, especially for capital works. I would, however, like to ask where the new leisure strategy is in progress. Along with a town centre that has been neglected over the past decade, Ferndown Leisure Centre is also at the end of its life and requires considerable consideration, not just for Ferndown residents, but for the residents in the east of the county, especially given changes in the leisure facilities within East Dorset. The land surrounding the leisure centre is under charitable ownership via the Town Council and leased to Dorset Council. And I would like to ask if the Cabinet could commit to investing in leisure in the east to support the huge health and wellbeing benefits of leisure. There is a very exciting collaborative opportunity to significantly enhance and invest in the health and wellbeing of the east of Dorset. Thank you.
A response from Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ryan Hope, portfolio holder for customer, culture and community engagement, and now also leisure. Firstly, thank you for the question. I think it's a nice question to have at my first meeting holding leisure, because it's all good news. And that's because this council is excited now to be developing a new leisure strategy aimed at enhancing the operation of leisure facilities across the whole of Dorset. This strategy will ensure that these facilities are accessible, affordable, and sustainable, with strong focus on equality and addressing health inequalities. In September, the Cabinet approved the acceleration of this initiative. The consultants are being appointed to advance on this project, and this comprehensive approach will strengthen and support healthier communities throughout our Dorset County. That's all I've got to say at the moment, and I'll of course update you sooner once I'm fully briefed on the progress.
Thank you. Are you happy with that response? We'll move on to question 2 then, submitted by Councillor Matt Bell.
Thank you. Councillor Matt Bell, Radipole Ward. Prior to becoming one of the Dorset Council members for Radipole, I began a campaign to highlight issues at Radipole Lake. This was in the form of a petition which remains open but already has roughly 2,500 signatures, including those online and on paper. The issue has also been highlighted on several occasions in the local media since the petition began. I thank the members of the public who took the time to sign the petition and shared their concerns and knowledge about the lake. The petition calls for all stakeholders to prioritise silt removal from the lake and river, to increase floodwater capacity and to reduce flooding in surrounding areas such as Radipole Park and Gardens, where outfalls are believed to be hampered by the high silt level. The petition also calls for the creation of a consistent and effective management programme to be followed moving forward. The lake is a prominent feature of both Radipole and Weymouth as a whole. Unfortunately, Radipole Lake has been neglected for many years and is no longer the prized asset it once was. The petition and media coverage prompted the involvement of key stakeholders, including Dorset Council, and initial discussions added significantly to the list of concerns I originally highlighted. There are concerns regarding potential risks to the SSI status held by the Nature Reserve, flooding of the adjacent road, park, gardens and businesses, algae growth, as well as the loss of a high-quality and treasured angling venue. The recently rejuvenated amenities at Radipole Park and Gardens spent much of the last autumn and winter flooded. I was delighted when meetings were arranged involving all key stakeholders and some early progress was made, including improvements at Weston Bridge. However, things have not progressed in a timely fashion on other aspects. Previous meeting notes about the lake from May stated that Wessex Water would clear outfalls along Radipole Park Drive, which are crucial to drain the park and gardens by the end of August 2024. But this has not happened. This is due to issues accessing and inspecting some of the outfalls due to vegetation growth. There are also investigations ongoing into potential grants for silt removal and habitat restoration, and I hope these can be expedited working closely with our colleagues at Natural England and the RSPB. Every element of decision-making and action at the lake seems to involve multiple organisations. It is crucial that Dorset Council drives this forward effectively. However, the planned September meeting regarding the lake was cancelled due to other officer commitments. What assurances can the Cabinet Member for Place Services give me that Radipole Park and Gardens will not spend another winter submerged and that the maintenance of a prized Weymouth asset will be prioritised in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ireland in response to that.
Yes, Councillor Nick Ireland responding on behalf of Councillor John Andrews. He's away on holiday at the moment. So the issues surrounding the management of the Radipole Lake water levels span many years. The water level management plan was completed by consultants in December 2009 on behalf of the previous Weymouth and Portland Borough Council. Around the same period, an application by the RSPB, the Royal Society for Protection of Birds, under an EU initiative to protect bittern, that's a bird, I believe, habitat was being considered. The proposal was to remove 55,000 cubic metres of silt and reposition them at a higher level, forming a bund, which is a noise barrier, at a higher, more critical floodplain level in the floodplain. The works involving extensive relocation of dredged silts within the lake were submitted to the Environment Agency at the time, who objected to this proposal. The relocation of the dredged silts off the site were also considered at the time, but discounted on cost and practicality grounds. A water level management plan working group was established in February 2024 to review the issues, and some of which Councillor Bell has raised, and develop a sustainable approach going forward. Several key partners are involved, including Natural England, the RSPB, Dorset Council, and also the Environment Agency. Partner organisations are of the view that local interventions on their own are not sustainable or cost-effective. A more strategic approach is required, considering impacts from the wider river catchment and management of reed growth. Actions developed to date include the Environment Agency proposing to look at the riverway catchment area upstream of the lake and to determine if farming practices can be modified to reduce siltation and chemical loading within the catchment in the future. Also, a site of special scientific interest, brackets SSSI, condition assessment is also currently ongoing for the lake to meet HM Government's target of 31st of January 2028. And in tandem with this, Natural England and the RSPB, via the Water Level Management Group, are progressing a habitat restoration bid for countryside stewardship funding. The current stage of the bid is a feasibility study that will inform the grant required for the capital works. As an interim measure, Wessex Water have been requested to arrange inspection of the public surface water outfalls into the lake to ensure they are blockage-free. This has been delayed due to access issues, but they are looking to meet in early October to review their programme of works. At my behest, they were chased on this earlier this week, and they have yet to respond. The Water Level Management Plan Working Group will continue to meet regularly to take this agenda forward. And I will, if you find the meetings cancelled again, just get back to me and I'll make sure it happens. Unfortunately, the risk of flooding to the low-lying areas adjacent to the lake, including Radipole Lake Drive and the gardens, are likely to increase because of climate change impacts. The area is already at risk of main riverway flooding, apparently a 1 in 100 return period floodplain envelope, I don't know what that means, as identified by the Environment Agency, and this will increase in future years. However, we will do what we can to manage flood risk proportionally by adopting sustainable interventions which offset the effects of climate change, and the partnership approach we are taking will be beneficial in this regard.
Are you happy with that response? Thank you. We'll move on to question 3 then, submitted by Councillor Flower.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Councillor Spencer Flower, Verwood Ward. The government's announced intentions to build 1.5 million new dwellings during the next 5 years. This will require a near doubling of the building rate, threatening our Greenbelt, AOMB and other undeveloped land. This will hit Dorset particularly hard, as we have little in the way of so-called brownfield sites. Legacy local plans and the emerging Dorset local plan includes policy which seeks proportion of affordable housing when development schemes reach a certain size. The new Lib Dem administration have indicated it wishes to build more affordable housing for local people, which is a commendable ambition given the local demand, but this will be a serious challenge to achieve. The biggest barrier to achieving this aim will be the retention of viability as a material planning consideration. There are several examples when permission has been granted and the developer has subsequently come back to council claiming for whatever reason that the scheme was no longer viable. This has resulted in the loss of affordable housing allocations. Can members be reassured that every effort is going to be made by the administration to lobby government for the removal of the viability of material planning consideration, or seek reform of the current guidance, such that a fair proportion of the new housing development in Dorset Council area is affordable housing for rent or shared equity? So my question is, what action is being taken by the Liberal Democrat administration to safeguard the provision of vitally important affordable housing in Dorset Council area in the context of the emerging Dorset local plan and the anticipated amended standard methodology? Thank you.
Thank you. There'll be a response from Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Shane Bartlett, Cabinet Member for Planning and Emergency Planning and Ward Member for Wimbledon. And can I thank Councillor Flower for his question? The Council's response to the government consultation was agreed by Cabinet on the 10th of September and submitted in time for the 24th of September deadline. In that response, we have objected to the proposed housing numbers on the grounds that they are unrealistic and unachievable. We have supported the changes that allow local councils to give greater priority to social rented housing in their planning policies, but have said in our response that this would require additional funding because of the greater cost. We have also separately written to government to stress a number of points, including the need for action to ensure that developers build out their sites and the need for a stronger stance on viability negotiations in order to enable affordable housing to be provided. In preparing the local plan, we will be ensuring that we have a robust evidence to support our affordable housing policies and taking the costs of development into account. While we are objecting to the scale of increased numbers suggested in the consultation, if we can deliver a greater level of housing in total, this will enable greater provision of affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you happy with that response?
Thank you. If I may come back and ask a supplementary, because thank you very much for your response, Councillor Bartlett. I think the point has been slightly missed. My principal issue is the viability criteria that sits in the when it comes to determining the viability of planning applications, where there's an opportunity for the developer to come back with a spreadsheet and we then lose what we all need. The idea sounds great that we're going to build more. You'd have a 35% unit sits in the local plan and they're going to provide more social housing. The problem is that along comes the spreadsheet after the permission has been given and we end up with none. And I think we need to do more work in lobbying government as a council. And by the way, I took a little bit of time to read the CPRE response to the MPPF, and I thought it was very good, if I'm really honest. And I read ours on the 10th of September. I was actually on the online watching the meeting, but the quality of the sound and the visual was so poor, I gave up after an hour, so I didn't get to see that particular item. So I spent a bit of time reading the agenda papers, and again, I think the response from the council was okay, but I don't think we were strong enough around that significant point that I made around that viability, which is a coat and horses to whatever policy we ever determine. Thank you very much. So I'd wonder if the Cabinet member can respond. Thank you.
Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Flower, you hit on a point, I think, that has been the bane of every planning committee member's life for however long they've sat on planning committees. And I think the same can be said for officers as well. It's an absolute frustration in a county like Dorset. And let's face it, it's a nationwide problem that every council authority down the country faces the same problem over this viability question with developers. You will know from our past time in East Dorset my view on viability and some of the comments I made within the chamber there under the watchful eye of the monitoring officer, which no doubt was going to have my eye on me now. The fact is that the viability is a significant issue. As I said, we have written to government separately from the MPPF consultation around viability and the fact that it needs to change, and that's probably going to need a change in statutory planning law at government. The fact is that a county like ours, where we're leaching between 30 and 40% of young families and children out of the county every year, is just not sustainable. We're rapidly approaching the point where we've got the tipping point of more retirees in the county than a working population. Economically, when we hit that point, my view is this council will be in serious financial problems, and the government isn't moving fast enough to address that. And one of those issues, as you rightly point out, is that viability issue. So can you please be assured that we will lobby government? I've said before, you've heard me say it, that I have a view that I think the South West region needs to speak as one voice. I'm still of the view that a regional voice on a subject such as this carries more weight at government. If you take Cornwall, Devon, Dorset, Wiltshire, Somerset, all speaking with one voice, we all share the same problem over viability, then I think that would send a louder message to Westminster. And I would urge that we need to take that route. But I do take your point on board over viability. We do have something within our arsenal, and I'm reminded of the fact when I was Councillor Coombs Vice Chairman on Eastern Area Planning Committee, that Councillor Coombs, through planning conditions, initiated the fact that we would, where we had a suspicion that viability, there was a question mark over it, that Councillor Coombs initiated a condition where we would build out part of the development and then return after, say, 50% of the development had been built to have a look at the viability again, which I think was a very good tool to use. So while we're doing a limited amount that we can, we will continue to pursue viability and pursue developers, but at the moment it does feel like it's a very one-sided argument. But thank you for the question. And I'm happy to meet outside the meeting with you, with officers, to discuss it further if you wish. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. We'll now move on to question 4, submitted by Councillor Vitali.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor James Vitali, Stourbridge and Marnell Ward. My question's on a similar theme. Since 2011, some 2,771 new homes have been delivered in the North Dorset area. According to the latest annual position statement published this month, there will be additional demand for over 2,500 households in the north up to the year 2034. Now, we know there is a national shortage of homes, and North Dorset is more than playing its part in addressing that shortage. But for development to be legitimate in the eyes of our residents, they must believe that it will add to their communities and not take away from them or tarnish them. And a really important part of that is ensuring that developers contribute meaningfully to investment in local services and community facilities. For some time now, however, the North has been an outlier in Dorset because it hasn't operated the community infrastructure levy, SIL, and has relied solely on Section 106 contributions. Speaking to my parish and town councillors, they worry that they're not seeing the fair share of Section 106 monies that they believe they're entitled to, and they believe that SIL would help ensure our communities meaningfully gain from new development. Now, I understand that SIL was going to be introduced in the North as part of the new local plan, but delays to that, the drafting of that document and its adoption has set the process back. And I'm concerned that our residents are losing out as a result. So to this end, how does the council intend to ensure that local residents in the north receive the investment they need in infrastructure and services to support that new housing supply? Could I receive in writing a report on the status of Section 106 funding in the north? And would the council now consider bringing the north into the line with the rest of the county by introducing SIL in our area? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bartlett again.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Shane Bartlett, portfolio holder for Planning and Emergency Planning and ward member for Wimbledon. And Councillor Vitali, thank you for your question. So the approach to securing developer contributions in North Dorset is through the use of Section 106 legal agreements for the major developments, i.e. development involving 10 or more dwellings. Evidence supporting the North Dorset adopted local plan is used in a case-by-case basis to secure infrastructure necessary to help make development acceptable in planning terms. Officers work with town and parish councils to establish their needs and apply this evidence when planning applications are being considered. This process has resulted in monies being secured for a wide range of community infrastructure. Dorset Council report on the performance of developer contributions through an annual monitoring statement which is published online. Government regulations around the use of developer contributions does allow Section 106 and Community Infrastructure Levy to be secured together in situations where SIL applies, though ultimately there will be a limit to what development can viably contribute toward these mechanisms. While the introduction of SIL in North Dorset would generate a neighbourhood contribution which would be passed automatically to town and parish councils where development takes place, it should be noted that this in turn would most likely reduce the extent of Section 106 obligations secured, which in the absence of SIL is currently the main mechanism for supporting local measures such as community halls, playing pitches and play areas. Dorset Council will continue to review the position with Community Infrastructure Levy and the local plan. There will be, in due course, a Community Infrastructure Levy schedule policy for the whole of Dorset. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. You happy with the reply? I'm going to come back.
Thank you. Just briefly, Chair. I'm heartened by the Cabinet member's response, but just to make the point again, Councillor Spencer's question really raised one of the issues with the current Section 106 arrangements, which is that with the viability requirements, sometimes developers get out of making those contributions. And therefore, local areas aren't receiving the contributions that they are entitled to. But just to confirm, the council is intending to bring in a SIL system for the entire county. Can I just confirm that's the intention?
Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, the intention is that with the local plan, it is historic that North Dorset didn't have a SIL. My understanding from the history of it is that the adoption of the North Dorset District Council's local plan in 2016 were working up the separate schedule for the SIL. There was an understanding from officers that actually the money that would be derived from that SIL wouldn't be sufficient really, and it would be better if it was all done through Section 106s. So what we're dealing with at the moment is a historic issue around that SIL levy, but I can give Councillor Vitali an assurance that going forward with the new local plan, there will be a separate community infrastructure levy schedule that will be for the whole of Dorset, including the former North Dorset District Council area. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to question 5, submitted by Councillor Quayle.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Byron Quayle, Blandford Forum Ward. At the most recent Schools Forum meeting, senior education leaders from Dorset suggested that BCP Council are actively seeking families to request their child's needs are met in a Dorset Council area educational setting. Can the portfolio holder confirm how many children with an education, health and care plan from other areas, including BCP, have been enrolled at an educational setting within the Dorset Council area in this academic year? And how has this impacted on the children in the Dorset Council area accessing these educational settings?
Thank you. We'll have a response from Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Quayle, for the question. Claire Sutton, Rodwell and Wyke Ward in Weymouth, Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Education and Skills. So, as we know, there is pressure on appropriate educational provision for children with an EHCP nationally, and therefore some movement of children across borders. Our team has a comprehensive plan, working with partners and schools, and our overarching strategy is that, wherever possible, children's needs are met locally so they can attend alongside their neighbours and their friends. Our Corporate Director for Education chairs the Regional Education and Inclusion Group, and Dorset hosts the Regional Lead for SEND, Dr. Vicky Jervis. This enables us to ensure that the regional educational leaders proactively discuss pupil intake across the borders and work towards equity. There is also an element of parental choice, as you know, when a child has special educational needs. The most reliable data source is the school census data collated in May each year. According to this data, between May 21 and May 24, we saw a 5% drop in BCP children being educated in Dorset, but consistent with the local and national picture, the proportion of those that with an EHCP has risen slightly from 4.1% to 4.4%. Total numbers. In May 24, a total of 225 children from local authorities with an EHCP were being educated in Dorset, of which 120 were from BCP. The same data will be collated again in May and will give us the most accurate picture of numbers of pupils this academic year, but we do not anticipate a significant increase in this number. We currently fund 675 Dorset children with an EHCP in other local authorities, including 339 in BCP settings. As there is movement of children in both directions, in relation to the second part of your question, we do not feel there is a particularly adverse impact on Dorset children, but as per our strategy, we continue to work towards keeping as many of our children here as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you happy with that response?
Thank you, Councillor. I may have missed it. I was referring to this academic year. I missed a bit of that there, so if you could just respond back with that. And I was wondering if we could, outside this meeting, discuss this particular issue, because I've been discussing this particular point with some of our educators in the Dorset Council area, some of the, with regards to meetings with BCP and keeping informed of their requirements or what they're doing. There seemed to be a lack of understanding or meetings taking place, so I think we need to just hammer that out. So if you would be prepared to meet with me to discuss that further.
Councillor Sutton.
Absolutely, Councillor Quayle. I'd very much welcome that, particularly given your experience. I'm sure I've got a lot to learn. In terms of the this academic year, I mean, yeah, you're right. So my answer says that we will have that data once we have the next census data. That's why the data I've given so far only goes up to May 24. But so once we have that data, I'll share it. So apologies on behalf of the census data for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Quayle, would you like to do your next question, question 6?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Byron Quayle, Blandford Forum Ward. Following a Freedom of Information request dated October the 16th, 2023, Dorset Council confirmed that approximately £22.8 million had been paid by developers for educational purposes since 2019, but had yet to be allocated to a specific project, so set in our accounts. Could the portfolio holder provide an update on how much of the £22.8 million has been allocated to educational projects since the FOI request in October 23? Additionally, has a Dorset-wide policy been implemented to ensure that projects are identified promptly and funds are allocated efficiently, preventing developer contributions from remaining unused in Dorset Council's accounts for years, instead of being spent on educational needs?
Thank you. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Quayle, again for the question. In respect of S106 of the Town and Country Planning Act secured funding, we must bear in mind issues which include many of the contributions are linked to specific schemes and cannot be transferred. The contributions are linked to the timing and delivery of houses, which is out of our control, and some contributions cannot be spent until the need is there, for example, in terms of admissions to local schools. I don't think the previous administration managed this well, but S106 isn't a magic bullet to improving the education landscape, and we have to ensure we invest in relation to likely developments in the longer term. Neither is the allocation unused. It is responsibly held to ensure that longer term projects to support our sufficiency duties in education can be realised. We can report on education spend that has been committed or is profiled. 29k has been allocated to Pimpern School to support an increase in admissions. 47k is in the pipeline for Hazelby Bryan for the same reason. 540k for the Lee Road School site project to secure the land is also in train. As things stand, so there's a big gap, as you would have noticed. As things stand, 22 million is held against 57 specific developments across the county, with the terms and conditions applied. In relation to the second part of the question, from a children's services point of view, we've made significant progress. Our Corporate Director for Education brought the Best Education for All board and the cross-council programme delivered by Assets and Regeneration together in July 24 to ensure robust oversight, and we have initiated a mainstream school estate review through BEFA. This enables responsible and timely spend within the terms and conditions applied to this funding stream, but as you will recognise, it is work in progress. Thank you.
Are you happy with that?
No, Chair, if I could just come back briefly on that point. I was just wondering if the portfolio is aware of any projects that have been identified or requests from educational settings have been made but have yet received funds. So effectively they've requested, those funds haven't been received, that have gone over 6 months. Is it?
Thank you. I'm not able to answer that at this moment in time. I've seen a long list of the specific projects against the 22 million, but the gap you're talking about is something other, isn't it? And I don't actually have that information to hand, so I will seek it and provide you with it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to question 7, submitted by Councillor Trite.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Bill Trite, Swanage Ward. First, I'm pleased to be able to point to much cooperative joint working between Dorset Council and Swanage Town Council in recent years, all to the public good, and particularly in respect of cliff stability, beach recharge, flood defence, and options for seafront traffic management. Another example of this constructive relationship is the Town Council's routine cutting of a large area of Dorset Council grassland at one entrance to the town, without charge to Dorset Council, as well as supplementing weed clearance work. Secondly, I'm pleased to be able to point to long-term acknowledgement by the former Purbeck District Council and by Dorset Council as Emergency Planning Authority, Highway Authority and Coastal Defence Authority that certain roads and drains near Swanage seafront are prone to widespread coverage by shingle and other debris as a result of wave overtopping during stormy conditions, and that the resultant hazard will be cleared by the authority in a timely manner with public rights of way reopened. Where it could, the Town Council has always assisted this process in terms of supplying manual labour and coordinating clear-up operations, and indeed is happy to continue to do that. Thirdly, I'm pleased to be able to point to assurances by the new administration at County Hall that Dorset people are not about to experience any deterioration in service standards. Why, therefore, with the present overspill of debris from the sea into the lower High Street, has the Town Council now been informed that the unitary authority has unilaterally decided no longer to accept any obligation to undertake this vital clearance and reopening work unless Dorset Council is paid to do so by Swanage Town Council? Thank you.
Thank you. A response from Councillor Ireland.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Ireland responding for John Andrews, whose cabinet role includes place and highways. So Dorset Council manages more than 2,400 miles of roads and 2,800 miles of countryside rights-of-way, along with all associated infrastructure, including bridges, cycleways, footways, drainage, street lighting, road signs, markings, traffic signals, car parks, trees, and verges. As a local authority, a local highway authority, I should say, the Council has a statutory obligation to maintain safety and accessibility of highways. To fulfil this duty, it may require adjacent landowners to undertake necessary measures to prevent soil and debris from encroaching onto the roadway. This includes areas of land owned and managed by town and parish councils. As Councillor Trice has alluded to, historically Dorset Council and Dorset County Council beforehand has collaborated closely and successfully with Swanage Town Council across various service areas and projects. This partnership will be further enhanced by a forthcoming transformative programme called Hedge to Hedge. This initiative aims to facilitate integrated service delivery between Dorset Council and town and parish councils, enabling them to work together as service delivery partners. Through this collaboration, it is intended that town and parish councils will be able to benefit from increased levels of service over and above those provided just by Dorset Council. And you can have my assurance, and Councillor Andrews, when he returns, that officers will be in touch with the clerk of Swanage Town Council to discuss this specific issue.
Are you happy with that response?
Supplementary, if I may, Madam Chairman. I'm pleased to hear what the leader has just said. And despite all the council's obligations, I look forward to hedge to hedge and exactly what is implied in that. But does he agree that it is actually in everybody's interest for the two councils to take a quid pro quo view of this and help each other wherever possible, as has indeed been the case up to now, without charging each other for things like this and treating each other a bit like suspicious strangers? Thank you.
Councillor Ireland.
I think the intention behind the answer that was prepared for me is that, yes, we will try and continue in the way we've successfully continued before. And if that's going to be changed, we'll look into that. But you have my authority, you have my assurance, basically, that we recognise that Swanage Town Council works successfully with Dorset Council, has done in many ways, and we should be helping each other to look after our residents.
Thank you. We'll now move on to question 8, submitted by Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Simon Gibson, representing Verwood Ward. There is widespread concern following recent proposals from Hampshire County Council to close a number of household recycling centres, including Somerley. Somerley serves many Dorset residents, including in Verwood, Alderholt, St Leonards and St Ives and Westmoors. It has been long understood that Dorset Council does not have adequate provision in the east of our county, and the partnership, therefore, with Hampshire County Council has enabled our residents to maintain good and fair access. The Universal Services Select Committee of Hampshire County Council has asked their Cabinet to reconsider these proposals when they meet next week. Will the portfolio holder and officers seek an urgent meeting with Hampshire County Council ahead of that Cabinet meeting to encourage them to keep Somerley HRC open and to restate Dorset Council's commitment to working together to ensure that residents in the east have a fair access to a suitable HRC?
Thank you. Councillor Ireland.
Councillor Nick Ireland, again responding on behalf of Councillor John Andrews. I'll just add a bit to the start of this. I've spoken with several officers this week, and I'm sure that from my conversations with them, they're all over this. But my official answer is, yes, we will seek a meeting with Hampshire County Council to discuss their position regarding the Summerley Household Waste and Recycling Centre. As we pay a substantial sum for our residents to be able to access the site, and we actually use about 45% of its capacity, and I think that's around about £300,000 off the top of my head, you can be assured the HCC understand the impact of the closure, of a closure, I should say, because they haven't decided yet, on Dorset Council. But naturally, they also have other considerations in reaching their final decision. If we are notified that the site will close and our contract requires 6 months' notice, then we will, of course, consider all available options.
Thank you. Do you guys want to come back?
Thank you very much, and thank you to the leader for his reassurances, especially on the meeting. When we had our place overview meeting a few weeks ago, the waste strategy was one of the items being discussed. At that meeting, I asked for greater clarity on our cross-border HRC strategy within the overall waste strategy, and wasn't given any reassurances. The committee regarded it as a matter that should be taken forward. That paper hits the Cabinet desk again on Tuesday next week. Can the leader give me reassurances that when that report comes to Cabinet, he will put in the importance of cross-border HRC into our strategy, please?
Councillor Ireland.
I'll do the best I can to answer this question. Obviously, it's not my area of expertise, and Councillor Andrews isn't here, but Councillor Bryan is sitting next to you, so I'm sure he can fill you in. I'm sure he's all over this. My understanding is that historically, the east of Dorset Council's area, it hasn't been very well served, hence why we are in an agreement, not just with Summerley, but to use some others as well. I think one in BCP, possibly two in BCP. Because we don't have the capacity in Wimborne. Wimborne is not fit for purpose, and historically we have looked at alternatives and have yet to find an alternative. So there has been investment in Blandford, though Blandford is obviously some distance away from Wimborne. Yes, so the need for other household waste recycling centres is acknowledged in the east, and as part of the strategy we're looking at that. And obviously we have a budget consideration coming up as well, and how we manage our budget in terms of waste and recycling. And you can have my assurance that that's one of the things we're looking at. And when I said all options, I did mean all options. So you can extrapolate how you want to interpret that.
Thank you. We'll now move on to question 9, which is the last question, submitted by Councillor Monks.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Craig Monks, Bedminster Ward, and thank you for accepting the question a little bit later than it should have been. Could the Council please provide some clarity in the recent position concerning funding for clearing the Council's ditches and gullies that provide drainage? I was made aware that funding had been removed for the vital service, so I asked the question of my local community highways officers. The reply I received was as follows. At present, we have no budget allocated to this function as it has been removed. The service manager, Neil Turner, and the newly appointed asset manager, Ian Newport, are currently in discussion on this issue. So my question is, can the Council please confirm that the funding has been cut in relation to this in relation to clearing of ditches and gullies? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ireland again.
Councillor Nick Ireland again responding for John Andrews. I should have borrowed his hat, to be honest. Councillor Monks, I think you were misinformed. I accept that that's probably what you were told, but it's the fact that the highways drainage budget has not been cut. During the summer, the Highway Service reassessed the upcoming ditching and drainage work to ensure it could be delivered within the available budget for this financial year. The work now can be delivered within the existing budget and will be carried out during this financial year, so soon, I assume. As mentioned earlier tonight, we are looking at a transformative programme called Hedge to Hedge, which we hope will have a positive impact on how we carry out such work in the future.
Thank you. Do you want to come back?
Thank you. I welcome that response. And if you, Councillor Ireland, could pass on my thanks to Councillor Andrews when he comes back from holiday. I was leaving you a bit of a workload this evening. And just to reiterate the importance of gullies and ditches. They don't sound very interesting, but in certain wards, they are absolutely vital. And certainly in emergency resilience, I see the portfolio holder nodding, it's gullies and ditches that stop houses getting flooded in Bedminster and Netherbury and Bridport. So it's a very boring but very important part of our work. So thank you for the answer.
To come back, Councillor Ireland.
I'm sure you speak for all of us. Gullies and ditches, it was the biggest issue in my own ward last winter, and for many of us outside the conurbations anyway.
That is the end of our questions from councillors. We now move on to item 9, the Dorset Community Safety Plan, which is going to be introduced by Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. The Council works closely with partners, including Dorset Police, NHS Dorset, the Probation Service, Fire and Rescue Authority and others to tackle community safety issues in the area. We do this through the Dorset Community Safety Partnership, the CSP, which is a statutory partnership under the Crime and Disorder Act 1998. CSPs are required to produce a 3-year community safety plans that are refreshed annually. So we're in the 2nd year of this one. And they are also required to produce strategies to reduce reoffending. Separately, partners are required to produce strategies for tackling serious violence. But in Dorset, they have chosen to coordinate this with the work through the CSP. The latest community safety plan, reducing offending strategy and serious violence strategy have been agreed and signed off by the Council and partners through the CSP. However, it is a requirement for them to be formally adopted by the local authority. Adoption must be full council. That is actually quite an important point because if I can just expand slightly on that, it would be very difficult to make amendments at this stage, but if there are things that you would like considered for future plans, then that will be the way to take this forward. The Community Safety Plan sets out partners' priorities and how they will be tackled in broad terms based on an assessment of community safety issues in the area. The plan includes references to members of the public's views on community safety issues. As with previous plans, it is complemented by more detailed delivery plans. The plan is being presented to the Council for adoption, is in its 2nd year, to allow for the incorporation of the work relating to the partner's duty to tackle serious violence. The Pan Dorset Reducing Reoffending Strategy was developed by partners through the Reducing Offending Strategy Group, helping ensure close links to both the Community Safety Partnership for Dorset and for BCP, and the Pan Dorset Criminal Justice Board. The strategy sets out partners' visions for reducing reoffending, contains information on the reasons for reoffending, and the services and programmes operating in Dorset to address issues. It also includes strategic principles and objectives. The third paper in this wodge of papers is the Serious Violence Strategy. This has been informed by an assessment of the serious violence issues in Dorset. It sets out partners' priorities and aims, which include approaches to tackle high harm offending, supporting victims, ensuring children and young people understand the risks and drivers for serious violence, tackling serious violence in the community, tackling organised crime, and undertaking work to further develop our local understanding of serious violence issues. Partners go through rigorous evidence-based processes to develop their plans and strategies. They regularly monitor delivery and impact through the CSP. The plan and strategies are reviewed in light of new evidence and insight to ensure they remain current and up to date. And that was actually one of the points that was brought up at the the scrutiny committee. There was a question about how up to date they are. These plans will alter as the years go on, basically in response to anything that's happening locally. The strategies stay as they are, but the partners respond to what's happening locally. The recommendation today comes from the members of the Council's People and Health Overview Committee, who considered the plan and strategies in their meeting on the 23rd of July 2024, and the Cabinet, who considered them on the 10th of September. Both recommended them to full Council for adoption. Adopting the plans and strategies gives members the opportunity to formally acknowledge the Council's and the partners' important work in this area, which helps ensure Dorset remains safe and residents supported and protected. So if I can propose the recommendation, and that is that the Community Safety Plan 2023 to 25, brackets 2024 to 25 refresh, close brackets, the Pan Dorset Reducing Reoffending Strategy 2024 to 2027, and the Serious Violence Strategy 2024 to 2025 are approved. If I could have a seconder, please. Thank you.
Thank you. That has been seconded. I believe Councillor Sumper would like to speak.
Thank you, Chairman, and for the report, which I support. Just looking at the priorities that are here today in 2.2, I would, and you stated earlier that if one felt there were things that should be perhaps being brought forward in the future, that could be considered. There is clearly evidence of a very unpleasant rise in hate crimes, specifically in the areas of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. I am not across the numbers here in Dorset, and I would hope that they are very low, if non-existent, but I don't know, and I know that there is a very sad increase in these sorts of hate crimes. So moving forward next year, when you look at this, perhaps it would be something that would be considered. I note that it was put down in the report as not a priority, as low level, along with knife crime and slavery and human trafficking. But it is on the rise, and I would like it to be reassured that it will be constantly monitored and looked at and considered as a priority.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson, did you want a seconder? Do you want to say anything?
Thank you, Chair. No, I'm happy just a second.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, and thank you for that question. It's a very good one. And interestingly, it demonstrates how the CSP moves, because at the CSP meeting, I think it was last week we had one, there's quite a lot of discussion about hate crime and looking at the analysis of what has happened in Dorset. Thankfully, the figures aren't huge in Dorset at all, not our part of Dorset anyway. So I think you can be assured that Dorset is very safe. It was interesting what was coming out on that, but it wasn't perceived as a really big issue, hate crime and anti-Semitism. But it is something that is monitored by the partners, and we will obviously keep a check on that one. Thank you.
Councillor Tuck.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor David Tuck from Cranbourne and Alderholt. Thank you for the report. It's good. It reads very well. It's a great job by the officers and yourself. I like things I can measure. And there's an awful lot of things in the broad performance thing, which is reduction in this, reduction in that, increase in the other. I would like to see either some details as to what those figures currently are and what we might hope to reduce them to. And I appreciate it's late in the day for this report. However, perhaps this could come to something like scrutiny later in the year, so that we can actually start to judge what effect these have actually had on these things, so that where we say that the broad reduction in the total number of rural crimes as defined by Dorset's Rural Crime Unit, what is that number? What's the reduction that we're going to experience? and what percentage reduction is that? And the same for all of these points. Is it possible to get some sort of metrics on this longer term so that we understand how effective these plans are? Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Councillor Took, for your question. I'm sure those metrics are available, and I do believe that these will be coming to scrutiny committee later on this year. So I'll make sure that they're all in place for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Surreyhouse.
Councillor Surreyhouse, Corfmullen Ward. Thank you, Cabinet Member, for that report. I agree very much with Councillor Somper. This is something that has been very much a focus of mine since being elected in 2019. Having attended Hate-Free Dorset conferences, which were led by the Dorset Police, those have fallen to the wayside now, and I understand there's a rebranding and a relaunch of that, and I would ask the Cabinet Member if that's something she could support and help the police reinvigorate. I think we live in a very leafy county, beautiful county, but there are aspects of hate, which I agree with Councillor Somper, need to be called out and nipped in the bud. Thank you.
I totally agree with you. Any hate crime should be called out, and I'm not dismissing it at all by saying there isn't much, because any is not acceptable. I'll take your thoughts forward I'll have a discussion with officers after and see how we can open discussions with the partners to take that forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kimber.
Thank you, Chair and fellow councillors. As a former volunteer with the youth offending, I really want to say tonight that I want to really give a thank you from this council for all the work that they did. I experienced a little bit, and knowing how much they work outside. Councillor Stomper also brings up several areas that need to be looked at, and I think that's only to be applauded. Hate crime, we all deplore. The reason I'm coming forward to tonight is recognising the amount of work that ordinary people are doing within our communities to combat this as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Coombs, Verwood Ward, Chairman of People and Health Scrutiny. I've just been having a look at my forward plan, and perhaps the Cabinet Member could tell me where on my forward plan the item is, because I can't find it.
Councillor Taylor.
Can I refer to officers on that? It was just my previous knowledge as being the chair of a scrutiny committee that these do come to scrutiny at some time during the year. I don't know whether officers can enlighten on that one.
Would you like to comment?
I'm looking at my Democratic Services colleagues. Andrew Billany, I'm Director of Community Safety as well as Housing. We'll have to check. I mean, it's an annual cycle of reporting back through scrutiny, so I haven't got the actual dates at hand, but it's an annual cycle of reporting back. And while I've got the floor as well, that also includes reporting back on performance information as well. So we'll get a date and obviously remind us all on when that is.
Thank you. Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Andrew Parry, West Parley Ward. When this matter does go before scrutiny, one request from me. The graph very clearly shows a very significant variation between male and female offending rates of adults. Could that be better understood as a piece of scrutiny? It would be important, I think, we understand whether one area has been underreported, for example, or whether we feel that there is a lack of engagement with the male offending rates, because that is shown as being well, off the scale in comparison, and what you'd expect to see more of a 50-50 split.
Councillor Taylor.
Once again, we'll take that up when it goes to scrutiny. Thank you.
If there are no more questions or comments and no amendments, can I now put this recommendation to the vote?
Members, the vote is now open. Thank you, members. The vote is now closed. The results of the vote are 71 in favour. The vote is therefore carried. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Now we'll move on to item 10. We have notice of motion about the winter fuel allowance, which is going to be introduced by Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Carol Jones, Sturminster Newton, centre of Dorset. I hope people here will not consider this to be political, because this really is not political at all. But the changes to the winter fuel allowance will really disproportionately affect Dorset, simply because we have such a higher number of older people in our communities than the UK average. And that in turn is going to really affect the charities in Dorset who support those people. I represent a charity that supports a group of people, one of the groups of people we support are elderly. And even just last week, we found an elderly lady with an evening food delivery sitting in the dark because she was already worried about having to pay the electricity prices, with prices having gone up this month. So, and the recent government's decision to restrict the winter fuel allowance to those pensioners receiving pension credit, despite having a fully costed plan, will mean at least 2 million pensioners across the UK who are fractionally over the £218.15 weekly limit will have to make difficult choices this winter, and they will be choosing between heating and eating. And, you know, it's this group of people that don't often like to say anything or ask for help. Analysis shows that energy bills this winter will be the highest on record for elderly people, particularly with a near 10% increase in the cap expected in the autumn, which is now. I've mentioned the demographics. Some information that came out yesterday via email to all of us showed that there are 5,000 pensioners in Dorset who could be receiving more money every week, every month, and they're not claiming it. And those that don't claim it, there will be a huge additional burden on the already overstretched NHS and adult social care budgets. And those who are just above the cut-off pension credit, they will suffer the most, and it really isn't fair, and we just need to be very aware of the problems that could be facing us all. So I'm moving 4 items, and the first one is that Dorset Council encourages those not on pension credit who could be eligible to apply to do so. But here, it's offering help to complete the necessary forms, and we have to do better than just say, go to citizens' advice, because these people will not always be able to get to citizens' advice or to anybody else. We have to do more to help them complete the necessary forms, which incidentally, I believe it's a 246 questionnaire. It's ridiculous. And the help, if we don't supply that help, that is a barrier to these people. So a pre-active publicity campaign offering help to complete those forms. And that too, Dorset Council sign up to the Save the Winter Fuel Payment for Struggling Pensioners petition being run nationally by Age UK. That makes perfect sense. And 3, that Dorset Council work with those local charities which support the most vulnerable in our communities, offering guidance to gain access to the resources they need, particularly in support of those who qualify to benefit from the Cost of Living Support Fund to help cope effectively with their heating needs during the winter months. And for Dorset Council, again, writes to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, I know that our leader has done this, but, you know, the budget isn't till the end of the month. Let's just do it again. Let's throw everything we've got at it. Just urging a review of the decision to means test the winter fuel payment and asking the government to ensure that vulnerable pensioners, particularly those who do not claim pension credit, are protected from fuel poverty with an assurance that energy companies will treat the vulnerable with a degree of leniency in respect of energy debt. Additionally, I understand from, I had thought we could ask DWP for the data on these people in our community who will be affected that could be claiming that are not. An email that came through yesterday said that we weren't able to do that, but we seem to have identified 5,000 pensioners. So if we've identified, we must know where are they, let's get in touch with them. And the advertising campaign that I saw yesterday, honestly, it's not fit for purpose. You show, we've got a Mrs. Biggins with our, Miggins, oh, it's Mrs. Miggins, right, Mrs. Miggins, who's 85, give her our leaflet with a QR code. What is she going to do? She won't have a smartphone. We've got to be able to reach these people individually. And certainly if I had a list of people that could be eligible, I would go and knock on their doors in this area. I think we all would. We just need to reach these people in an appropriate way with our messaging. And the messaging needs to be very clear that we will help you fill out these forms. I think I've probably said enough. I hope you'll support this because we've all got people in our area that need our help. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think Councillor Flower is going to second.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Yes, I will second this motion. I hope members across the chamber will support this evening without amendment because we've, as Carol Jones rightly says, we've kept this non-political. This is an issue about the implications that will affect the old and the more vulnerable in our society. And we talk a lot about in this chamber about early intervention in one form or another. If this isn't early intervention, I don't know what is. You know, we talk about Mrs. Miggins. She might find that when she can't do the heating she wants, her home gets damp. She gets bronchitis. Where does she end up? Critical care. So it puts pressure on the NHS. This type of help takes that pressure down. So that's why I'm very keen that we all support this, as I say, without amendment, because I don't believe there's any need for an amendment on this respect. I think it's short-sighted, Madam Chairman, and I think we should demonstrate in Dorset that we're on the side of the older generation. We've got the highest proportion of over 65s in the country, close to 30%. We need that. They need our support. Thank you, Chairman.
I agree that we should be supporting this, but I'd like to bring in the portfolio holder, Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and thank you very much to the movers of these motions, because I think they're right. I don't think any one of us in this chamber this evening can disagree with what's being moved. But also, thank you for giving me the opportunity, as the portfolio holder, to update this full chamber this evening on the work that Dorset Council, that's us collectively, are doing to address some of the issues highlighted in this motion and try and minimise the impact in the loss of winter fuel allowance to some of our residents. Members, you would have seen a campaign briefing sent to you all by our comms team in the last days. And I recognise the fact that Mrs Miggins she's probably going to stay in this chamber for the next 5 years now, Mrs Miggins. You're onto something there, Councillor Jones. She may not be able to use that QR code, but her daughter, her granddaughter, her neighbour will be able to do it for access. And on those leaflets, they are being amended, and we're going to list the charities that they can also contact, a range of charities, to let them know who they can contact for support with those forms. Now, I mentioned, we can't disagree with this motion. That's because we're doing a lot of it already. Half of this motion, Dorset Council is already doing. We've got targeted advertising. We've got campaigns in local publications, social media aims for different age groups. And again, we know that a lot of people may not be on social media, but their families, their relatives will. They'll be the ones concerned about Mrs Miggins, who's losing her winter fuel allowance. We're also distributing information. That's with town and parish councils, voluntary and charity sectors. We're getting it out there, all the help that is available to support these individuals. And the best thing of all is, obviously, we've allocated a £2 million cost of living initiative. We're going to be using funding from this to support the voluntary sector in delivering this support to local residents. We've also got Dorset Together, which is a partnership tackling cost of living challenges, which is run by Dorset Council, and there's a network of our voluntary sector that meets monthly to talk about the trends, the rises, and share ideas and work together to tackle many issues such as this. We've got the winter service being run by Help and Kindness, information on venues offering hot meals, warm welcomes, as some of the benefits that they're promoting. Income maximisation. We're working with Citizens Advice, Age UK branches to provide service to older people to claim the benefits they need, especially if it can help them reinstate the winter fuel support. And the Citizens Advice have launched their Energy Bus, a collaboration with Southern Gas Network, offering energy advice service to households in need, particularly in the rural areas. Additionally, we're working with a household support fund to work with those that will not be eligible for pension credit, but still need support. And we hope that will help a significant amount of our residents in Dorset this winter. My thanks, as I'm sure your thanks also go to, is all the officers, the community and the voluntary sectors that are supporting these residents at this time. So, as I'm sure no one in this chamber will disagree with this motion, and we're already doing half of it, I actually propose, let's move straight to the vote, let's support what we need to do, and let's just do it.
I do have one speaker who would like to speak first. Councillor Kimber.
Portland. Yes, I agree. I can't disagree with what's written. I spent 3 hours yesterday afternoon with a pensioner who was absolutely scared, worried about the future, and she was actually looking after her mother. And so this was very difficult. So I move an amendment. I haven't got a seconder, so if anybody's brave enough to second it, it'd be good. I'm suggesting this, this goes possibly as a number 5 to that. This council expresses concern that the social fund winter fuel payment 24, without any proper consultation or any impact assessment, is about to be stopped. This will bring hardship to many pensioners in our local community. Therefore, we call on the Chancellor not to cancel the winter fuel allowance. If I have a seconder, please.
Can I ask if there is a seconder for that amendment? We haven't got a seconder for the amendment, so we can't ask questions on it yet. And as there is no seconder for the amendment, we will go, I think, straight to the original motion. And you want to ask a question on the original motion, do you? Councillor Lace-Clark.
I can't respond if you don't unmute me. Thank you. Sorry, I think actually at this point I've got a procedural question that I would like to understand. You didn't ask Councillor Kim to stand up, so I'm not sure why you're asking me to. And so I would like to ask a procedural question on, we have had an amendment proposed. We're now seeking a seconder for it, but we're not allowed to ask a question about the amendment. So we have to agree to support something before we question it. Is that procedurally correct? Or are we allowed to seek that first? I'm just trying to work out for the future because I'm confused by this.
I think it's reasonable.
So you'd like to ask a question about the proposed amendment before it is seconded? Yeah, is that okay? Yeah, okay. Yeah, clarification. Yeah. Yes, okay.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'm not trying to be awkward, I'm just trying to follow the rules and I didn't understand it. So I'm not sure the difference between this point 5 and point 4. There's nothing in this point I disagree with, but I'm trying to work out the difference between this and point 4, or if they're actually the same.
Would you like to explain that, Councillor Kimber?
Yes, when I wrote this morning, I was trying to, I believe that it needed strengthening, that we as a council needed to show our communities that we are taking action as to where, and I hope our MPs respond positively to this. Thank you.
That was the clarification. So is there a seconder for the amendment? No, right, we'll go straight to the original motion, and I think Councillor Christopher wanted to speak.
Members, I am conscious that you have heard predominantly from urban councillors who represent urban seats. And I would make the point, representing the very rural Marshwood Vale, that the Marshwood Vale doesn't exactly have a lot of gas supply, and it tends to have one of the oldest populations. And I would like reassurance that Dorset Council will make every effort to contact pensioners in the very rural wards with the highest amounts of fuel poverty that you could imagine. And because we've had to listen to so much squirming from the member from Portland, could I request a recorded vote? Thank you, Chair.
He's asked for it. Does he have support?
You have to have people supporting a recorded vote. So does anybody else want a recorded vote? No, so we will not have a recorded vote. Councillor Hope a while ago said we should put this to the vote. Is everybody happy if we now do that? We'll now have the vote.
Members, the vote is now open. Councillor Christopher, would you mind pressing your voting again, please? Thank you, members. The vote is now closed, and the results of the vote are 70 in favour. It's therefore carried. Thank you.
That was an excellent result, and thank you for putting the motion. Our next motion is talking about goldfish, I think. Pets for prizes. Councillor Coombs.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Let's hope we're on a roll tonight. We're not superior to animals. We are blessed to have them in our lives, and we should treat them with the kindness and respect that they deserve. Just as humans should display humanity and stop hurting each other, we need to bring cruelty towards animals to an end. They're not put on this earth to entertain us, to be abandoned, tortured, punished, nor to be abused. For example, giving a goldfish in a plastic bag of water to someone who is not expecting to take on a new pet leads to suffering for the fish from shock, oxygen starvation, or death from changes in water temperature. And many also die before the new owners get them home. The number of cases reported to the RSPCA each year regarding pets as given as prizes via fairgrounds, social media and other channels is a matter of concern. By implementing a local ban, we can help eliminate the giving of pets as prizes on our council-owned land and send out a strong message. This council has considered a similar motion in the past, but did not implement a formal ban and press government for appropriate legislation. Therefore, I'm asking you tonight to support the following motion. 1, that Dorset Council recognises that many cases of pets as being as prizes may go unreported each year, and supports a move to ban the giving of live animals as prizes in any form. That this council agrees to ban outright the giving of live animals as prizes in any form on Dorset Council land, and writes to the government urging an outright ban on the giving of live animals as prizes on both public and private land. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe it's going to be seconded by Councillor Bryan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. When I was first approached whether I would second this, I looked very carefully as to how this would be viewed by the general public. I think it's clear that what we're looking at is a protection of animals, and I have to declare an interest in this because I'm a working member with several animal charities, have been in the past and continue to do so. I would say pets cost money with their upkeep. That's not in question. So even a free giveaway, when they get home, they cost money, even if you're lucky enough to keep them. Many pets are not wanted when they get home. So what happens to them? We all hear the stories about what used to happen, and many a toilet has been flushed with a goldfish in it. Goldfish can't swim in that. I would also add that pets are for life. So when you take on a pet, it has to be a consideration that you've given great thought to. And I would ask that you support this motion because I think it's to the benefit of pet welfare, but also the way we treat animals as humans. They're our friends, not our enemies. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. I believe Councillor Leary wants to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. Whenever there's an unpopular stand to be taken, you know, I will come to the aid of it. I'm a great believer in personal choice and individual responsibility. I believe if you're given a goldfish at a county fair or a county show, you have the choice as an individual to take it on with you or not. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You're not forced to have it. You're not forced to look after it. You can make the decision to not take it on with you. I just find too many things today in the world are banned. You can't do this, you can't do that. The state prevents you from doing this, the state intervenes on that. We have to stop, we have to get away from this belief that the state, and whether it be the council or the government or some quango, can dictate and enforce morality or public decency or even common sense. I just think this is not something I can support. I strongly believe that we all have individual responsibility and personal choice, and therefore I'm afraid I will be voting against this.
Councillor Sauerhouse.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Sarryhouse Corfmullen. I rise to support this, and when our colleague Tony Coombs approached me and said, would I be happy to support this, I was very glad to do that. I think it's very simple. We lead and we choose to show an example to our community. We don't run by mob rule or bad choices. Any life, in my opinion, should not be something that's won. Any life should be something which should be properly respected and valued. And so I'm very content to support this motion.
Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Took.
Thank you, Chair. David Took, Cranbourne and Alderholt. I'm slightly at odds here with Councillor O'Leary. Surprisingly, never happened before. He says he doesn't believe that laws are there to impose morality on people. I sort of dispute that. I think the fact that murder is illegal is part of that response. Negligence is something that we punish when people are responsible for something and they're negligent in it. And to give animals as prizes to people who are, quite frankly, not able or not willing or prepared to look after them doesn't absolve the giver of any responsibility. And to make this illegal, to follow most of the councils in Wales and other councils in England on their own land and follow our SPCA recommendations, I think is very welcome. I don't like the idea that every man is an island. I won't read the rest of the poem, it's far too long, and I can't remember it all word for word. But no man is an island, and anarchy seems to be the idea of giving everyone their own unlimited rights. So I just can't accept that. Sorry, Louis.
Councillor Quayle.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to come back in support of the motion. When Councillor Coombs asked me to be a signatory to it, I was happy to. A bit like Councillor O'Leary, I'm not typically in fan of an over-regulated approach, things being banned, restrictions on personal freedoms and liberty. But one thing about this one that strikes me is that if you go to particularly the fairgrounds where these are often displayed, it's often prizes as a result of games won by children. So it's often very young people, and I think it's unreasonable for us to put the bar where personal responsibility starts and where it ends. What we're doing here is quite a proportionate measure, and in essence, what we're doing is showing some leadership. While I'd hope everybody's personal responsibility said, I'm not going to win a pet on a whim, I don't think that's proven to be the case in the past, so I think this is a needed step forward.
Thank you. Councillor Lacey-Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Notcher and Lacey-Clark, Blandford Forum Ward. I found this one of the harder decisions I've actually made in the council, which for me is odd. I'm pretty easy to make a decision. Animals not being prizes, amazing. Animals are really important, fully support that. And I was talking to some of my residents about this, and they said that Dorset has a rich history of giving actually livestock and animals as prizes that you cherished because you managed to win them and you kind of fought for them, you went for that effort. And that gave me a whole different way of looking at it. I did some research. You're not actually allowed to give prizes out to anybody under 16. The children can't actually legally win them. That's already written in law. And I think there is a bit of merit to looking at the other side of the argument a bit there, that actually if it is a constructed, good attempt at winning and something people are knowingly choosing to try to win, there is merit in allowing it. I agree they shouldn't be handed out wastefully, which is what the ISPCA talks about in the terms of all the goldfish that are hung up and probably doomed to die if they're not won. So I'm really on the fence. I find it quite a difficult choice, actually, because overall I want to support it morally, but in reality there is merit to the other side as well. Thank you.
Can I just bring in Jonathan Mayer about the legal aspect of this?
Thank you. I thought it would be helpful, members, just to say something about the law in relation to this, because back in 1993, when I was a newly qualified solicitor, Somerset County Council, in a case called ex parte viewings, attempted to ban something on their land. And what they attempted to ban in those days was hunting with hounds, the Quantock hunt, and they attempted to impose a ban on hunting across any part of Somerset County Council's land. That was quashed in the High Court, and I remember very clearly that the judge at the time said, when the council considered that position, where was the county solicitor, where was the legal advice, because the judge concluded that it was unlawful at that time for the council to impose such a ban. Move forward to 2024 and the legal position is very different because councils now have a general power of competence that gives you the ability to do anything that an ordinary individual can do in relation to their land. So my advice to you, and taking on board the judge's position back in 1993, where is the legal advice? The legal advice is that it is perfectly lawful, if you choose to do it, to impose such a ban as is included in Councillor Coombs' motion this evening.
So this is a legal motion. Can I call on Councillor Sutton now?
Thank you, Chair. I just quickly wanted to say, although there isn't universal agreement across this chamber, I think there's quite a strong sense of agreement, so maybe it's time to move to the vote.
Got Councillor Parry left, if you'd like to say anything.
Very similar, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm a great believer that the taking on responsibility of an animal as a member of your family should be done in a sober and a reflective manner. It's certainly what we did with our own when we adopted Louis, the cat. Although we did have to wait for him to be neutered before he could come and join us. Madam Chairman, I genuinely, this is about the reputation of this council and the use of council land and property, and I think we need to reflect about that in a sober manner this evening, and that is why I will be supporting this, and I think I would encourage all other members to join us in doing so.
We will now go to the vote.
Yeah. The vote is now open. Councillor Brent. Oh, you're okay. Yeah, 64. Oh, yeah, she's gone 64. Yeah. Councillor Sutton, would you mind voting again for me? Thank you. Is that it?
She's gone.
Yeah, she's gone. Thank you, members. The vote is now closed. The results of the vote are 66 in favour, 2 against, 1 abstention. The motion is therefore carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 12, there are no urgent items. Item 13, no exempt business. So thank you all for coming tonight. And now you can all go home and look after your pets properly. I'm going to see my dog.